All right, guys, we're going to talk about a topic that's on everybody's minds this time of year, and that is fantasy rookies. Now, we don't obviously have a whole lot to go on because they're rookies, obviously. But, Jeff, I'll let you kick things off. And just in general, what are your thoughts on rookies as it relates to fantasy football?
Well, the biggest thing is that they're typically overdrafted because of the upside. And people love drafting for upside because it's a little bit of the unknown thing, right? We see a lot in the NFL. People aren't willing to trade their draft picks because the potential of that player they're drafting has a tremendous upside, especially at the quarterback level. Whereas someone like a Brandon Marshall has been traded several times for like a fifth rounder, proven Pro Bowl player. You kind of have the same thing here in the fantasy realm to a degree because you have someone like Fournette going in the back end of the second. You got Christian McCaffrey going in the back end of the third. A lot of news coming out of the report that they're using him in all facets out of the passing game, which is good. But again, we haven't see it in game. So that's kind of the issue that me and you have, Seth, that their price is baked into their ADP. Their upside is baked into their ADP, and we can't forecast if they can outperform that or not. But to give you a player that I like a lot, that if I wanted to take a risk on him that I think is an intriguing person is Joe Mixon, because I liked him coming out of college, has that tremendous upside, arguably the top talented back in the NFL draft, goes to Cincinnati. Jeremy Hill was top 5 for red zone rushing attempts. So he could arguably take that over. Gio Bernard coming off of the injury. I think his ADP is a little bit too rich for my blood, but if there's one person that really kind of I'm fancied over, it's Joe Mixon.
Fancied over. Yeah, I mean, the tough part with rookies is it's pretty hit or miss. You look at last year's rookie class, and you had, Sterling Shepard had a really good year, but Josh Doxson did absolutely nothing. Laquan Treadwell was MIA all of last year. So it's a complete coin flip on what these guys are going to do because, are they going to play week one? Are they not going to catch stride till after, kind of midway point in the season? A lot of them go into bad situations. So I think it's really tough. I think it's really hard to give an opinion on rookies. You have to know a little bit more about the league you're playing in. If you're in a keeper league, I might like Christian McCaffrey in the 4th round. I might not mind Leonard Fournette in the late. I still wouldn't probably like Leonard Fournette in the late second, but Christian McCaffrey, if you're in a keeper league, in same thing with Joe Mixon, I might be fine taking them in the 3rd and 4th round because that means, okay, maybe you sacrifice a little bit this year, but next year they enter next season as potential first rounders, and you have them at the 3rd or 4th round keeper slot. So that has to be factored in when you think about these players. But one rookie that I really like is Dalvin Cook. He's going in the between the 5th and the 6th round.
Yep.
He's not in the best situation in Minnesota, and they have Latavius Murray there, but I think he's going to be the starter this year. And at a 5th round starting running back, that's a pretty good spot for somebody. And then you factor in the keeper on top of it. I like that even more.
Yeah, I don't like to try buy too much into the keeper because look at what Jordan Howard did last year, and he's still being drafted in the 2nd round. So if Christian McCaffrey would have to have as successful as a year as Jordan Howard did just to be drafted potentially only 1 round higher than he's going. So I try and take the whole keeper situation out of it. Dalvin Cook definitely presents the best return on investment when it comes to rookie. We project him being the star because Latavius Murray is garbage. He's starting the year on the PUP list, right? So we expect him to definitely take over the role at some point in the season. Wide receivers, to transition to them a little bit, is difficult because wide receivers typically take a year or two, a lot longer at least, than a running back would. And Mike Williams is already kind of injured, has been conflicting reports in terms of his back, so that's already major red flags that we're staying away from. Then you have Corey Davis on a team that likes to run a ball a lot, that also have Rashard Matthews that had 9 touchdowns last year, and they bring in Eric Decker. What do you think Corey Davis's actual upside could be?
I think he has a ton of upside. I mean, outside of Eric Decker, which I think is a short-term fix, I think Corey Davis is going to be the guy in Tennessee. I'm a big fan of Marcus Mariota this year, and they drafted him in the 1st round for a reason. So I don't know if I love Corey Davis the first 8 weeks of the season this year, but moving forward, I think next year he could be a stud. We could be looking at him as a 2nd round type receiver next year. But I think with receivers, I think a lot of times you're really gambling. You're playing with fire that first year, which is why we usually like to stay away from them, especially with wide receivers, because we've seen it in past years. Last year we talked about Laquan Treadwell. We talked about Josh Doxson. The year before you had Kevin White, who still hasn't done anything in the NFL. So it's hit or miss. You just have to be really careful, especially with wide receivers. Running backs are a little bit safer, but again, usually because of the unknown, because they're the kind of the sexy new thing, they're going to be overdrafted, and that's why more often than not, I'm staying away from a lot of these players.
Yeah, and let's just wrap up with tight ends. And probably, since I can remember, we had 3 tight ends go in the first round: O.J. Howard, Evan Ingram, and David Njoku. Now Cleveland goes ahead and lets go of Gary Barnidge right away, so he's got the front line to win the starting job as a tight end, but he's in Cleveland, right? That's not attractive. Evan Ingram is essentially a wide receiver in a tight end's body, going to be playing split end. And they still have Sterling Shepard in second year. They bring in Brandon Marshall, a lot of mouths to feed in New York, not very attractive there as well. The only person really kind of getting attention in terms of rookie drafts is O.J. Howard, but people are also forgetting that they have someone called Cameron Brate out there. And tight ends historically take even longer sometimes than wide receivers to come in their own and be effective. So the only person that's not being talked about is actually the person being drafted out of the LA Rams, drafted early second round. I think is a good dynasty pick, and that's the only person. Your thoughts on tight ends?
Not a whole lot. I'm not a big fan of tight ends in general. I like O.J. Howard, but he had a few good games in Alabama. He doesn't have a really good body of work. Right. People looking at his physical tools and his potential and all that. But they added Deshaun Jackson. Mike Evans is still the guy. I don't like O.J. Howard this year. He's being overdrafted. I'm going to take a wait and see approach. For tight ends, I'm not playing that game and taking any rookies. I'm going to go in the later rounds if I have to and get someone like a Zach Ertz. So, yeah.
I completely agree there. All right, and that's our breakdown of NFL rookies.